Hi, welcome to the newest episode of Sports Talk Central. I'm your host, Adeep Mahmood, with my normal co-host Hunter, and tonight we're going to be talking about the NFL Championship weekend. But before that, we do have a lot of news on the head coach carousel. The Panthers went out and brought in Dave Canales to be their head coach. The Falcons brought in Raheem Morris, and now we know that Zach Robinson is the next OC. The Titans brought in Brian Callahan to be their head coach. The Chargers brought in Jim Harbaugh, and we know Jesse Minter is going to come in and be their defensive coordinator, which probably means Jay Harbaugh, who is Jim's son, is going to be the special teams coordinator. And then obviously we can talk about a little bit about the coordinator stuff later on. But what were your thoughts on these hires?
Yeah, I mean, the Jim Harbaugh one, I feel like we all knew that was coming
Yeah,
at this point. He led Michigan to their first national title since 1997. That was his alma mater. He's accomplished everything he's needed to accomplish there, right? I mean, he got back there, he did the job, and now he can go back to the NFL and try to get a Super Bowl like his brother already has. And he'll now go to a team that, let's face it, it's kind of a cursed franchise. It's funny. You're bringing a proven winner into a franchise that knows nothing about winning. I'm curious to see how this goes. And I do think Justin Herbert is going to play really well under him. I think if they get a solid offensive coaching staff, that unit could take off.
there's a rumor. There's a rumor who that offensive coordinator might be. I'll tell you who it is, but
I
uh,
believe I know who you're going to say because I've seen it as well. But
I don't think that's
defense.
the case, but I don't think that's the complete case because there is
Yeah,
also a bunch of there are a few names out there he could go, but that was one of the names that was in the report that could be it.
right. I mean, just everyone knew he was going to go back to the NFL at some point. There was all the smoke and rumors. Not surprised to see him go back there. Brian Callahan, I like that hire. I think he could do a pretty solid job.
Do you think his
And
dad's going to be there? You think his dad's going to be his offensive line coach?
I can see it. Yeah. I mean, I definitely could see that. And, you have, I mean, I got to admit, I was kind of surprised that the Falcons went with Raheem Morris. I thought they were going to go with Belichick, but I guess Morris blew them away during interviews. And, he's been a head coach before. It was only a small sample size, but he's also been with Atlanta before as well. He was their interim head coach. I believe it was after Dan Quinn got fired, if
Yeah,
I'm not mistaken.
yeah.
He coached 11 games. Arthur Blank knows him. So they decided to give him the role. I'll be curious to see how the Falcons potentially turn around next season. And now you only have two more vacancies, Seattle and Washington. We think Washington is probably going to be Ben Johnson from Detroit.
Yep.
Seattle, though, I think is a little more wide open indeed. You got Dan Quinn, obviously. You have potentially Ravens defensive coordinator Michael McDonald. Yeah, that's
Mike.
his full name,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
Yeah,
No,
I
it's
make
Mike
sure
McDonald. Yeah,
not.
maybe. Yeah.
I almost thought I mispronounced his name for some reason. I don't know why. But you have the
You
Ravens
get
defensive
Mike
coordinator Mike
McDaniel and Mike
McDonald.
McDonald stuff combined all the time. So yeah.
Yeah. I mean, you have him as a candidate, Dan Quinn's a candidate. They're really going through the interview process a lot slower than I thought they would, but I think they just want to get this right after moving Pete Carroll upstairs. But it looks like right now, Bill Belichick is not going to be a head coach in the NFL next year. Did you see that coming?
Yeah, no, but then I will say that once I started seeing the Falcons saying apparently it was obviously Bill wanted control over roster because I think he wants 15, 16 more wins at least to break the record. So and then you see Falcons were the only team that interviewed him. It was possible. There's also that weird rumor that Andy Reid could potentially retire in the next couple of years. I don't personally buy into it, but maybe Bill
There's
Belichick's looking.
one rumor that he could retire after this year and Belichick could take over. I don't
Yeah,
buy that at all. I
yeah,
don't
no,
buy that.
I don't buy it either. But maybe he's looking for an opportunity like that. No, but I think once it was just the Falcons, then it's like okay, maybe there's a possibility. But yeah, I was a little surprised.
Right. I think next year it's probably more likely he's going to coach because when more jobs open up, because they will. But right now, I just don't really see it overall. Are there any hires that surprised you during this cycle?
The Canales thing was surprising because he's a name no one thought of. But then once it was, they brought in Dan Morgan, who was
Yeah.
in Seattle when Canales was there. And then you also think about it, Ben Johnson's going to the Commanders. Also, by the way, it is interesting noting how a lot like the Falcons didn't really interview Ben Johnson after a while. The Panthers, so that's kind of an indication that he's going to the Commanders. Slowick seems like he's going to wait a year, and it's almost like, all right, you want an offensive mind, a younger offensive mind. It's not Ben Johnson. You're not getting Slowick. Who would be that guy? And Canales just made sense, so maybe it works there. Interesting fact though. I think Canales is, I think, a Latino apparently. I guess also once they got that second interview, that was probably a good indication right there. Yeah, I think I wouldn't. Nothing really there. Raheem Morris, I kind of expected. Like if you couldn't get Bill Belichick, the way I kind of looked at it was the front office was favoring Raheem Morris. Owner Arthur Blank was favoring Belichick, and I think Vrabel had an interview with them, but he was probably like the guy in the middle where he had enough Belichick influence, so maybe Arthur Blank would have wanted him, but then the front office, he might also be someone that could be controlled by the front office as well. But then here's the other thing, the weird thing about the Vrabel to Falcons thing. His assistant was Arthur Smith. The Falcons fired Arthur Smith.
And guess who Arthur Smith is interviewing with today?
Pittsburgh.
Yeah, offensive coordinator job.
Yeah, so it would have been really weird. It's like, oh, you fired the assistant of the guy you're interviewing. Oh, yeah, by the way, apparently Mike Vrabel could have brought in Arthur Smith as his OC if he took a head coaching job. So that probably said no. It's going to be interesting what Seattle does. I think I agree. I agree. Ben Johnson to the Commanders. Anything else is just agent speculation. Here's the weird thing with Seattle and Mike Macdonald. Because Pete Carroll, they did not fire Pete Carroll or ask him to, or he resigned or whatever the situation was in that 3-day time period. They have not done an initial interview with Mike Macdonald. So here's why that's relevant. Regardless of what happens in a few hours, either Mike Macdonald's going to be available tomorrow or he's going to be available February 12th. For an initial interview. Not a second interview, an initial interview. So you have to assume that there's going to be a time period after that interview where Mike's going to have to try to think, does he want this job? The Seahawks have to think whether they want to give him the job. Oh, yeah, and by the way, you have so many coordinator positions filling up. Is Mike Macdonald going to get the coordinators he wants? Is he going to get the staff that he wants? Because the Seahawks are going to have to, because they didn't fire, which was really weird. If they really wanted Mike Macdonald and they knew that this was a situation, and the whole thing with Pete Carroll, the timing is just off. So I think if Ravens win, I don't think Mike Macdonald is going. I don't think he's an option because the timeline doesn't work. And also here's the other thing. John Harbaugh and the Ravens are going to want to keep as many of their assistants. By the way, Denard Wilson, their secondary coach, is interviewing for a DC job for the Giants. So you have, even with considering Mike Macdonald, they might lose some assistants. So how many assistants do they want to lose? Michigan's going to keep a lot of their guys. Sharon Moore is going to be the next head coach there.
Yeah.
And Jim Harbaugh is taking Jesse Minter with him.
Yep, I saw that.
And so between Michigan, Jim Harbaugh, and John Harbaugh, that's a lot of the Mike Macdonald connections that if he were to be a head coach, he might pluck someone from those trees. Even if you were to go outside of that tree, a Sean McVay or a Kyle Shanahan type tree, how many of those guys would be in competition with everyone else? Like Raheem Morris. Like I said, he already brought in Zach Robinson.
Yeah.
And also the Steelers apparently also interviewed Thomas Brown, who's also from the Rams tree as well. So if you do go past that tree, which might be limited now because now you have a lot of head coaches in that area that probably are going to be taking jobs with either a Harbaugh or at Michigan. And now you're balancing that out with a McVay or Shanahan tree. Now you got other coaches who were from that, like a Raheem Morris, that are going to take those spots. Then you have whoever Dave Canales is going to hire. Then you have whoever like the Packers are going to bring in for DC and whoever else. At that point, if you're Mike McDonald and you got a cushy job in Baltimore, like, are you really trying to do? Are you really trying to be a head coach? Like, because the process is going to be a long time. Now, Seattle can just say all they want. We want to interview Mike McDonald. That's why I kind of say Mike McDonald. It's a long way of saying because of the timeline doesn't work. I just don't think it would. I just think there's so many complications there. So, but I'll throw out a few other names for Seattle. Dan Quinn apparently is a favorite for the Commanders job. I don't think that. I think any other name other than Ben Johnson is just agent leverage. And in the case of Dan Quinn, he's got 2 interviews with the Seahawks.
Yeah.
I wonder if he's leveraging the Seahawks and saying, look, I'm interested in the Commanders job, but I'm also interested in the Seahawks job. And depending on what happens today between the Lions and the Ravens, the Lions game and the Ravens game, there is some leverage there. I might not be an option. So I don't know if the Seahawks are going to bring in Dan Quinn. That's going to be that. I don't know if they will. Now, there's a rumor that apparently Dan Quinn would bring Chip Kelly in as the OC, which would be an interesting pairing, but whatever. I'll throw a name that I could see the Seahawks hiring. Let me see if I can write Evero. He was with the Panthers, DC, the Broncos, DC. He was with the Rams, and he's kind of like Mike McDonald-ish. Like, he's kind of like that young defensive coordinator. He's been in some bad situations, which is why people don't really like him. But I could see someone like him going to Seattle. Like, I could see someone like him going to Seattle because he's done 2 interviews with them already. But, yeah, I definitely think Seattle is going to be really interesting. Now, let's talk with the coordinators. Eagles, Vic Fangio as a defensive coordinator was expected, but man, they were scheming against this guy in Dallas for a while in Kellen Moore. Now Kellen Moore is
Sirianni has no more excuses heading into next season. You changed both coordinators. Howie Roseman didn't want to get rid of you after the collapse. You have the quarterback, you have the playmakers, the running back, you have the offensive line. You got no excuse on both sides of the ball next season. If they can't get it done next year, indeed, I think Sirianni's job could be in serious jeopardy. I think. But those are 2 solid hires. Fangio's been around the league for a long time. Kellen Moore, I think, is a pretty solid offensive coordinator. If I were the Steelers, I would have been interested in him, but he goes to the Eagles. But I think those moves are pretty solid for the Eagles, in my opinion.
And then you have the Dolphins defensive coordinator. We don't know what's going to happen there. The Rams
obviously getting an interview for it, I believe. And I think he's also interviewing for the Packers as well.
Right. And then you have the Rams. They're going to have to replace their defensive coordinator. The Buccaneers are going to have to replace their offensive coordinator as well. So it's going to be really interesting. I mean, obviously Brandon Staley got fired, but I wouldn't be surprised if he's back with the Rams as their defensive coordinator, back to where he was a couple years ago. It would be interesting. Like, how funny would it be, like, if the Miami Dolphins go from Vic Fangio to Brandon Staley as a defensive coordinator? And how would you think Staley and Mike McDaniel would vibe?
That would be pretty funny, to be honest.
Yeah, so I guess next week we'll have a better sense of the coaching carousel next week in the coordinators.
And the Steelers have interviewed a few people for offensive coordinator. Gerard Johnson. They're going to interview Arthur Smith today. They've interviewed Thomas Brown. There were rumors about Zach Robinson. I don't even think he interviewed. Like, they were interested, but Raheem Morris just scooped him up. And then there was a rumor about Cliff Kingsbury. He's not interviewed either. I don't want Cliff Kingsbury, by the way. And my thoughts on Arthur Smith, I'm kind of meh about it. I do think he did solid work with the Titans. He actually made Ryan Tannehill into a good quarterback while he was with the Titans. They had pretty decent offensive numbers. Then his time in Atlanta, where he called the plays, Desmond Ritter's been really bad. Drake London didn't really see the ball that much. The running game was kind of ineffective. I think the Steelers should aim a little higher than him. I think my number 1 option right now is Clint Kubiak. I know the 49ers are playing today. If they lose today, though, I would look for the Steelers to interview him next week for this position.
They don't have to wait until a team loses.
I think out of just because the NFC Championship game, I think they're waiting though to see what happens. That's my guess.
Okay. Yeah. Um, yeah, so we'll start with the preview for NFL Championship weekend. Let's go with that game, Lions 49ers. Obviously, we were talking about the coaching carousel. That's why there are a lot of people into this game. For me, I think Deebo Samuels is playing in this game, so 49ers should have a good chance. The only concern I would have if I'm a 49ers fan is the Lions have a really good run game. They got a really good run game. They were able to, and then pressure rates for the 49ers have kind of decreased the last few weeks. No one's really brought it up, but like Chase Young, that trade has not worked out as well as we thought it would work out.
No.
But he could still be dominant. Him and Nick Bosa could still be dominant, but it does kind of feel like you kind of expected more. Like once, like with that trade.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think if the Lions can run the ball and then of course open up play action and use the pass catching ability, I think it could be a long day. But also the Lions, I think the 49ers offense has a lot of firepower. Brandon Ayuk could have a big game as well. I mean, I think this is going to be an interesting matchup. What do you think?
It's going to be a really close game. You know, the Lions are looking for their first Super Bowl berth in franchise history. They're one of 4 teams that have never made the Super Bowl. I think everyone outside of San Francisco, California in this country is probably rooting for the Lions to win this just because they've never been there. You know, they're a fun team, man. I mean, they can run the ball, but
no, DC fans are rooting for the 49ers because of Ben Johnson.
Oh, well, of course. That makes sense. I think for the Lions, you know, Jared Goff's been awesome all season. Amon-Ra St. Brown is going to be a handful for anyone in the 49ers secondary. But I'm watching Brock Purdy in this one. Can he bounce back after looking a bit rough last week? And yeah, I know he led the game-winning drive. He looked pretty solid on that drive. But before that, he was playing pretty crappy. The Packers had him in hell all game long. And it looked like for a while that the 49ers were going to lose that game. I want to see more from Purdy in this one. It feels like for the 49ers, it's either you do it this year or I don't know when you're going to do it, because I think this is their best chance to win it. Even when you look at the AFC, and those are obviously 2 of the best teams. We'll get to that just a second. The Chiefs, I still feel like this is the weakest Chiefs team we've seen in the Mahomes era, but yet they're 1 game away from going back to the Super Bowl. You even have the Ravens, who I know the Ravens kicked the 49ers butts in San Francisco just a few weeks ago, but a rematch, anything can happen. I do think with the 49ers talent level, with how good of a coach Kyle Shanahan is, this is their best opportunity yet to win a Super Bowl. But again, single elimination, anything can happen. I'm going to go, you know what? I'm going to take I've been kind of going back and forth on this one. I like the 49ers by a field goal very late. Would not be surprised if the Lions win it. I like the 49ers to get to the Super Bowl. I think they just have too much firepower on offense. I think Purdy can have a better game, and I think their defense will make just enough plays to slow down the Lions' offense. It would be awesome if the Lions win. I hope I'm wrong, but I'm going to take the Niners by a late field goal to go to the Super Bowl.
Yeah, I got the 49ers in this game. I think this is good. I honestly, I mean, this is just a prelude to the Ravens-Chiefs game. I wouldn't be surprised if this game is closer than the Ravens-Chiefs game. And I'll explain why I think that would be the case, because there were some injuries on the Chiefs front that could be something interesting there. But no, I agree. You said everything. I got the 49ers winning this game. And yeah, I mean, Brock Purdy, the last thing I'll say is last year he had the excuse, not the excuse, but he had the reputation of Mr. Irrelevant, going on a Super Bowl run.
He did have the excuse in the NFC Championship game, by the way.
Yeah, he had the excuse with the injury, but last year he was kind of going into the playoffs. Excuse isn't the wrong word, but he was going into the playoffs as he's Mr. Irrelevant. He's got the first time as being a starter. Now we know what you can do. The expectations are higher. So it is going to be interesting to see how he handles that. Let's talk Ravens Chiefs. Let me just change the text for the title here. But so the idea is for me, so injury related as well. When you actually right first time. The injury related no Joe Tooney, he's out. No Willie Gay, he's out. No, they have a defensive tackle, he's out. Kadarius Toney is out, but I don't know if that's a big loss for him. It's going to be interesting. I think Joe Tooney being out is pretty big because the Ravens have one of the better D lines. I mean, Justin Madubuike against the backup, it's going to be rough. Pacheco, I know he missed time with injuries this week. If he's not 100%, and we saw what the Ravens did with their run defense, it's going to be rough. Then you have Willie Gay. He's a quarterback spy. If you can't, the last guys you can have with sideline to sideline speed against Lamar is going to be a little tricky. I think the Ravens win this game, but I don't think. Here's how I think it can
How
go.
close do you think it is with Mahomes, especially?
I think I could see it being like 35-24 type of game. Well, Ravens, because the way I think about it, because I think that the way that they were able to stop the Bills' running game towards the later part, but the Ravens' run game is so much more. Ravens' run game is a little more multiple because it's a little more multiple. There's more speed because obviously Josh Allen can run the ball, but he's like a linebacker with good speed. Lamar's like a Ferrari. You open up a hole, and he can get that extra 2 yards. And obviously, you got Mark Andrews coming back, Isaiah Likely coming back. I still think Isaiah Likely is going to be your tight end 1, and Mark's going to be there in select packages. But by the way, Mark Andrews got hurt like 2 months ago, and he's already back, which is insane.
Right.
Apparently, his girlfriend had like a hyperbolic chamber, which begs the question: why does his girlfriend have a hyperbolic chamber just sitting around? But good on that because he was able to recover. I could see a big game from Odell. Because I think if people don't remember, I think L'Jarius Sneed's gonna be tough. I think it's fair to say L'Jarius Sneed's gonna be on Zay Flowers. I think that's a fair thing. Unless they play Zay on the inside a little bit more. Odell apparently in the last offseason, he said that I'm not looking for a lot of money, but I'm asking for more than $4 million. And a lot of people are speculating that it's Kansas City that offered $4 million, so I could see a big catch. I think Ravens get into an early lead. Chiefs in the last 2 minutes make it close. They might get a touch. They'll get a touchdown within the last 2 minutes of the first half. Ravens will build up that lead in the third quarter, and then the Chiefs will get a touchdown late. There's going to be a bad call by the ref. There might be a bad call by the refs to make the game look closer. So that's why I kind of say 35-24, because I think that the Ravens will build up the lead. There's going to be a late touchdown. And I think Ravens dominate it because if you think about it, the teams that they've played this year that are above 500, they have crushed. They have crushed all these teams. Like 49ers was 33-12 before the Sam Darnold touchdown. The Dolphins 56-19. The Lions they dominate the Lions. They dominate the Seahawks. They dominated the Texans. That was a 34-3 game if you take away the punt return. I'm giving Mahomes and Chiefs enough respect that I'm not saying 34-10. I'm not going that far. I still think it's going to be within 2 touchdowns, and I'm going to say I'm going to say within 2 touchdowns, and I'm going to say they get a drive they get a touchdown late in the second half within the last few minutes, and then a touchdown late in the first half. But I do think the Ravens are going to have that moment where they're going to score a bunch of points and they're going to build on that lead, and that's why. So I'm giving the respect to the Chiefs, but I think the Ravens.
For me, it's so hard picking against Mahomes, even though I feel like this is the weakest Chiefs team of this era, right? And I think the Ravens lose this one, Adit. I don't know if they're going to get another shot to go against them because I think, well, let me rephrase that. If they lose this one, they're not going to have a better opportunity because the Chiefs are going to reload for next year. They know they have no wide receivers. They know they need more playmakers, especially with Travis Kelce getting a bit older. You lose this one at home, the job next year and going forward is only going to get tougher as the Chiefs get stronger for next season and year after. So I think this is the golden opportunity for the Ravens this season.
Yeah.
They've beaten the Lions. They crushed them at home. You crush the 49ers on the road. So you'll be favored in the Super Bowl if you win this game no matter what. But they have to win. It has to be their year this time.
Yeah.
That said, I'm going to go with the Chiefs by a field goal too. It takes everything in me to not pick against Mahomes, but he's just an assassin, I think. Like last week, it looked like Buffalo was going to finally break through, right? But that's how I feel about the Ravens now. If they don't break through against the Chiefs, when are they going to? Just like the Bills, I feel like, because they've done everything right during the regular season. They haven't been able to break through Mahomes. Can the Ravens actually break through? I don't know if I see it right now. I could be dead wrong, though. I could see the Ravens definitely winning this game by 10 to 14 points. But I think with the way Mahomes plays in the playoffs, the level that they showed last week, they're such a tough team to beat even on the road. I think the Chiefs are going to win it also late by a field goal. I could be wrong. I easily could be. But I'm going to take the Chiefs right now by a field goal just because I want to see someone beat Mahomes before I take that team to win it. And I think indeed, if the Ravens do win this game, I will take them to win the Super Bowl in 2 weeks.
That's why I brought up the injuries. I think if it was like fully housed, like if you had, like even if you had Joe Tooney, that's why then I would have made the prediction that they would beat him by 1 touchdown. I just think with Joe Tooney, I am not discrediting the Chiefs at all. Like I said, the fact that I'm saying within a 2 touchdown margin is giving me respect. Is giving respect to the Chiefs because I've seen the Ravens crush these teams. That being said, I just think the Chiefs have too many injuries, and I think that their injuries are in key spots. Like, do you think? Like, let me ask you a question about the offensive line for Kansas City. With Joe Tooney, without Joe Tooney, do you think how much of an impact do you think Tooney would have made in this game? It
would make a big one, especially in the run game, I think, and also just in the passing game by giving Mahomes more protection. But the thing is, with or without him, he's still going to extend plays. That's who Patrick Mahomes is. You get him outside the pocket, he's still going to kill you. No matter if Tooney's in there or if he's not in there. So that aspect, that doesn't change that much because he'll escape the pocket no matter what. But in terms of him staying in the pocket, I think the Ravens have a better shot of getting to him quicker now that Tooney is not playing. So that's the thing I definitely do see a little bit.
And also you have Kyle Hamilton who can now cover Travis Kelce. And even then, if you could have like Marlon Humphrey's going to be playing, but I don't know if you want with a calf injury. I don't know if you want him being on the outside. So if you put him on the inside where he has played slot corner, but now you have Kyle Hamilton and you have Marlon Humphrey and then you have Roquan, like you have like the middle of the field. I think the Chiefs, the one thing the Chiefs can do is challenge Brandon Stevens and a Ronald Darby or Arthur Millette. No, not Arthur Millette. He plays in the slot, but like Darby and Brandon Stevens and try to get those deep balls to MVS because I think the middle of the field is going to be really tough for Kansas City because the Ravens have so many options. Like they could just have Patrick Queen rush the passer, Roquan in coverage, and then Kyle Hamilton on the side. They could do so much that I think the middle of the field is going to be tough for Kansas City. If they can hit those outside the number shots, they have a really good chance. That's the thing. And
the Kansas City defense, I will say, is a lot better this year than in years past. I think this is a unit that could give the Ravens fits, but the Ravens have also feasted on a lot of good defenses this year, especially at home. So I don't know. This is going to be like a fun chess match, I think, on both sides of the ball. I think it's going to be interesting to see how Todd Monken attacks the Chiefs defense. And also, how does Andy Reid attack your defense, which is one of the best units in the league, if not the best.
Yeah, and I think that's going to be the key. I think the guys I mentioned, your Kyle Hamiltons of the world, your Roquan, like that's going to be the key there. But yeah, I think
you're going to have a big game, I think, against the Ravens. Travis Kelce, you know what you're going to get from him. The Ravens are probably going to put either Humphrey on him or Kyle Hamilton, or just get him some help. I feel like you got to at
It's
least
gonna be
double
some
cover him.
combination. It's probably gonna be like Kyle Hamilton in the back end, and then Roquan in front, and kind of like bracketing. Because the thing about Travis Kelce is if he can find that open spot, he can be really good. But it's also like
Right.
if you watch like NFL Live and everything else, and you see them how the Ravens do their defense, if you notice like they're all kind of in that area, they're all kind of playing zone defense. So, but then like I said, with the O line, with Matabike coming through, and you have no idea who's going to blitz. Like if you can do that and then not see Jadeveon Clowney come in, or maybe in another play, Jadeveon Clowney may have been the rusher on that play, but he's in coverage, and then Matabike is the one supplying the pressure, or Patrick Queen. There's so many ways, and don't sleep on Arthur Millette as well. I mean, obviously he was with the Steelers, but he's like, if you've seen him the way the Ravens use him, he blitzes really well. So like
Yes, he does.
Yeah, so you give him time, and if you do those horizontal east-west passes, like those screen passes, he can sniff those out. And but yeah, I think it's gonna be really interesting. It's gonna have to be a masterclass from both sides. I think my Super Bowl pick is probably gonna be Ravens 49ers. I'm going chalk. I just think that there's too much there. You're probably going Chiefs 49ers.
I'm going to go Chiefs 49ers. I think we're going to get a rematch of what we saw just a few years ago when I was finishing up college. Again, I could totally go 0 for 2 on here. It wouldn't be surprised if I did, because I think both these games are between two very evenly matched teams. I feel like,
Right.
I think the Ravens are a little bit better. I just think Mahomes is such an assassin in the playoffs that I think he can up his level even higher. But the Lions 49ers, they're evenly matched, I feel like. So these two games are going to be a lot of fun, and we'll have to see who goes to Super Bowl in 2 weeks. I wish you good luck, Deep, but I obviously, as someone who lives in the Steel City, obviously I'm gonna not pull for your team to win.
Here's a question with the Lions, like especially with the coaching stuff. Like, do you think that this is the Lions' best year, or do you think that they're in the start of their run, or do you think that depending on what happens this off season, like regardless whether they win or lose or get to the Super Bowl or not, do you think that this is probably the best situation they're going to be for next few years?
I think this is just the start. I think Dan Campbell has them humming at a really high level. I think he's just getting started in Detroit. Yeah, you do want to take advantage here because the 49ers have been pretty vulnerable down the stretch, and Brock Purdy, you don't know what you're getting to get from him during some games. Deebo Samuel's a bit banged up. But even heading into next year, the NFC is still kind of weak. I mean, the 49ers, obviously, sure. The Eagles, you would think, will be better, but they weren't world beaters this year. The Cowboys, they were going to choke in the playoffs probably. I mean, the NFC South is not really that good. I mean, the Lions are going to be the favorite to win their division again, and they're going to be one of the favorites to get to the Super Bowl. So I think they're just getting started with how Jared Goff is playing, with how their offense is humming, how good their defense has been. Even if they lose Ben Johnson to the Commanders, and I think that's probably going to happen, they should be able to find a competent replacement for him to keep that offense humming. So I think this is just a start for them. I think, honestly, I think they're playing with house money right now. Obviously, when you're 2 wins away from winning a championship, you want to do your best to do that. But I think they're kind of playing with house money with how Dan Campbell has really turned this thing around.
I think that they have a run in them. I think they at least have a 2 or 3 year run in them, because a lot of their guys are still on rookie contracts. It's like the Lions are going to be one of those interesting cases of they have a good coaching staff and they got nice players on valued contracts, but then once these guys start to make money and then you start to poach, like this year might be more likely be Ben Johnson. Next year be whoever else it could be. Like I know it's like Tanner Eaglestand or something. That would be, if Ben Johnson were to go, the quarterback's coach for the Lions, I want like Tanner something, he would be the replacement. So maybe there's some continuity there. But when Amon-Ra St. Brown is due for a new contract and Jameson Williams, it's going to be interesting what they do there. And also when Aiden Hutchinson, because he is a beast. But when he's due for a new contract, it's going to be, they have a nice run in them. And I think what's really helping them is going to be that weak NFC. But yeah, let's see what happens there. I mean, so we'll be back next week. We wanted to do a quick show today because the AFC Championship game is in about 20 minutes, close to it. So we just wanted to make sure we're ready to watch that game.
Yeah, good luck, Adit. We'll see if you guys can pull it out and head your first Super Bowl since what, 10 years? I believe it's 10, 11 years at this point.
12 years, yeah.
12, yeah. Oh, yeah, 12. Yeah, right. So, yeah, good luck, man, and hope everyone enjoys watching the games.
All right.